You guys really like that video on the spooky, scary socialist. I know that I made it like 5 years too late, but hey, just like when a child molester gets beaten in prison, it's the thought that counts. Dean Withers is what would happen if every single Blue Sky and r/politics user jizzed in a cup and spat it into Nancy's pussy. I've already taken a shot at Dean in a previous video, but I was too lazy to put the clips I was mentioning in the background. That's my bad. But we're going for the run back. Dean is not escaping me this time. I will actually cite my sources, and we're actually going to be responding to this video that I picked up at complete random. All right, let's do it.
Let me ask you a question. So you support Trump. How do you feel about him labeling people that are anti-fascist as terrorists?
I'm sure some of them are.
No, you said like everybody that is anti-fascist is a terrorist.
Well, if you're part of the organization that wears the mask.
Your next line will be, but Antifa isn't an organization.
So Antifa is not an organization. It's just a political movement. It's just like saying that you're against fascism.
Read like a fucking book. Antifa, specifically the one that Republicans and Trump frequently reference, is a collection of domestic terrorists that uses layered methods to gain plausible deniability. The main reason why people say they aren't a terrorist group is because they're decentralized with no discernible leaders or classes for the most part. On top of that, the mainstream leftist media and even Wikipedia refuse to acknowledge the cases in which people who self-identify as members of Antifa commit violence because of organizations like the ADL having heavy leftist biases. And compounding with that is that many useful idiots refer to themselves as Antifa, which severely muddies the waters and makes it hard for people to differentiate between genuine accelerationists committing violence and jobless college students who are trying to spread Becky's legs. Overall, people like Dean refusing to acknowledge Antifa's existence is quite simply because the media told them to. This guy would probably believe that the storks bring babies to parents if CNN made an hour-long documentary about it.
Some people don't think that.
Some people don't think that? Well, okay.
Yeah, some people identify as Antifa differently.
Okay, can you give me
I don't know, you ask them. Yeah, well, I mean, you're a pretty well-adjusted person, but there's a group of people who have similar beliefs. They wear a mask, they mess things up, they protest.
People that mess things up that wear masks? Are you talking about ICE?
No, I'm portraying a very recognizable group of people. It's not ICE.
Comparing ICE to a terrorist organization is wild, mostly because they don't use terror as a tactic. In fact, the fact that people start scattering like roaches when an ICE vehicle is pointed out actually makes their job harder. The point of terrorism is scaring people into compliance or inaction. Does Antifa do this? Yes. Does ICE do this? No. The only people who should be shaking and sweating after seeing a cheesy Halo ICE propaganda video are the people who aren't supposed to be here.
Okay, so they're called Antifa? Is that what you're saying? See, so like Donald Trump has been doing the same thing.
Well,
right?
I don't
Like,
think he's
Antifa are
referring
domestic
to you.
terrorists. Wait,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
don't think he's referring
Antifa.
to you.
But I'm Antifa.
I don't think you are.
No, I am Antifa. I'm anti-fascist.
Alright.
Dean Withers is doing what a lot of leftists do when Antifa is brought up, which is deflecting it by saying, well, everyone's anti-fascist, therefore we're all Antifa, therefore we're all terrorists. This is completely ignoring the fact that words can have double meanings. If I say to a girl, nice ass, she's not going to start looking around for a stray donkey. She's going to report me for sexual harassment, as she should, because I'm nowhere near attractive enough to pull that off. This is literally anti-bad guy, good guy quab.
Well, have you firebombed the building?
Wait, I have a question. You don't need to firebomb the building to think that fascism is
Well,
bad.
he's referring to people who are like that.
Okay, no, he said Antifa. He's not referring to people that are like that. Why are you playing mental gymnastics for him?
Well, if I call myself a refugee, is he going to deport me? No, because I'm not a refugee, right?
Okay, so then
So
you're saying
he's not gonna-
so then what? Okay, I want you to define Antifa.
Yeah, Antifa are okay, so there's two definitions of Antifa, right? There are the people who are like you, who say, oh yeah, I'm against fascism. Okay, that's cool. But then there's another group of people who feel like they have to be violent, they have to protest, they have to fight. And they
So
take it out on
you're not
innocent
defining
people.
Antifa. I'm just asking you to define Antifa.
He just did. He just said that it has two definitions. Dean is positively bewildered at this idea that words can be used in different ways than intended. Like how people from Indiana say creaming instead of winning. This is something that everyone from Indiana does, by the way. They all do that. Every single Indiana resident says creaming instead of winning.
There's two definitions for Antifa.
Okay, give me like a clear definition of Antifa.
Well, it's pretty vague. So do you want Trump's definition or do you want my...
Donald Trump doesn't think it's vague because he defined this
Well, it's
certain
vague
word
because
as
you
a
are calling
definite
yourself
domestic
Antifa.
terrorist group.
It's vague because you're calling yourself Antifa when you don't fit the profile of Trump's definition of Antifa. That's why
So
it's vague.
how do you know what Donald Trump's definition of Antifa is?
Well, he's referring specifically to the people who protested during 2020, who destroyed a lot of businesses.
So how do you know what his definition of Antifa is?
Well, is he arresting you?
Once again, Dean is positively starstruck at the idea that you can use context clues to figure out how words are being used. He's gonna flip when he learns about homophones.
So he's not arresting me?
Are you worried? Are you worried at all that he's going to arrest you?
I mean, I could definitely see a little bit of
I
perspective.
don't think you
in there,
are.
Potentially.
I think you
But
know
this isn't
implicitly that you are
answering
not
my
Antifa,
question.
basically.
How do you know what Trump's definition of Antifa is?
Because he describes Antifa
Okay.
as violent Are you violent?
Well, I mean, he describes like Democrats as hateful. Does this mean that like his definition of Democrat includes hate?
Yeah.
Oh, do you agree with
But
that?
that doesn't mean all Democrats are hateful.
Wait, so does
It
that
just
mean
means
that
some Democrats
do you
are.
think that I'm hateful?
No, you're actually a nice guy.
Okay, so then you'd argue that according to Donald Trump's definition of what a Democrat is, I'm not a Democrat?
You're not a hateful Democrat.
Oh, but no, because remember, you just told me that I'm not Antifa because Donald Trump defines Antifa as like quote unquote violent, and meaning that in accordance with his definition, I'm not Antifa. Okay, well, he also defines like Democrats as hateful. You just agreed to that, meaning according to Trump, I'm not a Democrat. But isn't that like absurd to say? Obviously, I'm
according
a
to Trump,
Democrat
you're not a hateful
because
Democrat.
because I vote for blue, right? Meaning I'm obviously also like Antifa because I'm against fascism.
All right, so Dean changed subjects to Trump calling Democrats hateful and then asked whether it's an apt description, which Richard believes that it is, but he clarifies that he doesn't believe Dean is a hateful Democrat. Dean uses this to say, well, actually you do, because if I'm a Democrat and I'm not hateful, then Trump wouldn't believe I'm a Democrat. Therefore, Trump says Antifa is violent, and I'm not violent, then I can't be Antifa. There is a gigantic, gaping flaw with this logic, which is that the word violent is an objective descriptor, while hateful is a subjective one. Dean is treating them like they're both subjective, when the violence Antifa has committed is a concrete, objective fact.
Well, you're not the Antifa that he's referring to, and you know that.
Well, how do you know who he is referring to? Like, what is the
You
organization?
go
Because
to bed every night.
he refers one
Yeah.
moment. He refers to an actual organization. I have a question. Where's
Yeah.
this organization's like headquarters at?
Well, there's like the Antifa of like Portland. There's like the Antifa of Denver. Like there's chapters of Antifa.
Oh, okay. So
They
you're
call
saying like
themselves-
there's like very clear organizations, like actual organizations that he's labeling
Yeah,
as domestic
they
terrorists.
have.
Wait a minute, Dean. Didn't you say...
So Antifa is not an organization. It's just a political movement.
So you either lied or were ignorant of their existence, neither of which makes you look very good here. All right, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. This was probably just a mistake. Maybe he just misspoke.
They have Twitter accounts.
Can you like point me towards like one of these actual organizations that he's labeling as terrorists?
Yeah, the Antifa of Portland. That's one.
And Antifa of Portland. Okay. What do I need to look up to find them?
Twitter.
Okay. What do I look up on Twitter?
Antifa of Portland.
Just on x.com?
Yeah,
Okay, I can do that right now. Also, Richard, you definitely have been up here before, right? You could just admit it.
I have not.
No, you have. I definitely remember you.
I talked to Parker. Are you Parker?
No, I'm Dean. I'm saying that I've talked to you.
Yeah. Well, I talked to Parker.
So I just looked up Antifa Portland on Twitter. Like, I'm not
Rose
really
City
finding
Antifa.
anything.
Sorry, Rose City Antifa. RCA.
So how do I spell that?
RCA.
So I just
Rose
type in
City Antifa.
RCA.
Yeah, Rose City Antifa.
Okay, so I'm typing in. So how do I spell Rose City? What are you saying?
Rose.
R-O-E-R-O-W?
Rose as in like the flower.
Okay, Rose City.
Yeah.
Antifa. Okay. Okay, well, so this is an account with 41,000 followers, right? And these are domestic terrorists?
Well, there's a lot of these. You can
Okay.
find them anywhere.
But like, if you're in Rose City Antifa, you're a domestic terrorist.
Possibly.
No, not
I don't wanna
possibly.
call
No,
everybody
I asked you for like a definite like terrorist organization that he's talking about.
Well, you
and you
asked for
said
an
that there were
organization
like legitimate Antifa organizations that he's labeling as terrorists. So then I asked you for an example, and you gave me Rose City Antifa. See, like I'm looking at Rose City Antifa right now, and like the first thing that I see is call to action happening now. Go to PSU, bring a tent and a friend. We're gonna advocate for Palestine. So I didn't know that like protesting in support of Palestine made you a literal domestic terrorist.
Well, the argument was, are there an organization called Antifa? And I just named one with 40,000 people.
Basically, Dean is saying that Antifa doesn't have a concrete organization. However, we've already explained how they are not one single organization, but a decentralized network of small groups that fight using a shared uniform, flag, and handbook. When Trump refers to Antifa, logic would dictate that he's talking about people causing violence and causing destruction, blocking roads, setting fires, smashing windows. But Dean needs to explain to him like a baby because he's searching for a way to make his terrorist designation sound unreasonable.
The question was, can you point me towards one of these Antifa organizations that he's labeling and defining as a domestic terrorist organization?
Well, there's a lot of them, and a lot of them are violent. So
Okay, so point me
those are
towards
the
like, one
Antifa that we're
specific
talking about.
organization. Point me towards one specific organization that he's labeling as terrorist. Do it.
Dean thinks he's smart with this one because he's essentially asked Richard to perform an impossible task. Keep in mind, once again, that at the start he said there was no Antifa organization in Ba Sing Se. It was a myth. Fiction. He got schooled by the GOAT Richard over here and moved the goalpost to show me an Antifa organization that commits violence as a group. Question, Dean, why the fuck would an organization that's been dodging the public eye like a Dark Souls character want more attention? Antifa's biggest ally is the fact that people don't believe they're a threat. They have the media greenwashing their protests as mostly peaceful, and mayors of cities like Los Angeles, Detroit, Dearborn, Portland, and I think New York as well, refusing to reel them in. They cover their faces and wear all black, back and receive supplies in unmarked trucks from God knows where. They're clearly getting support from someone. There is some sort of organization behind the scene working to keep him afloat. But Dean's logic is essentially, even if there's a murder weapon and a person dead, if we can't find the culprit, then it must be suicide. This guy must have just stabbed himself 58 times in the chest because he was just depressed or something. I don't fucking know.
Well, he's calling the organizations the terrorist organizations.
Okay, which organizations?
Well, would you agree that...
No, one second. Which
Al-Qaeda is a
organizations?
terrorist organization? Can you name all the cells? Like, what kind of argument is that?
So I'm asking you to...
Are they not a terrorist group if you can't name all the cells?
But you'd be able to specifically point towards, like, an Al-Qaeda terrorist group. You'd be able to specifically point towards, like, specific individuals that are a part of Al-Qaeda. You'd be able to specifically point towards historical leaders of Al-Qaeda. I'm just asking you to do the same thing for this Antifa organization. Can you point me towards, like, very specific leaders of this Antifa organization? Can you point me towards, like, even just one specific sect or organization, right, of this Antifa terrorist organization?
Wait. He moved the goalpost again. Did you catch it? In that last section, he said,
you'd be able to specifically point towards, like, specific individuals that are a part of Al-Qaeda.
Now, aside from the fact that not every terrorist group is structured like that, he is pedantically correct. But hold on, because in his next sentence, he doubles back to asking Richard to name a sect or organization.
Can you point me towards, like, even just one specific sect or organization, right, of this Antifa terrorist organization?
The first part of this was framing, influencing you to think, oh, he should be able to answer this question, but he's still asking the same exact loaded question. He's acting like he's throwing him a bone when he's doing anything but. Now, if he wants a small group of people, how about these 3 black-clad self-identifying Antifa members to beat a fellow leftist to the point of a concussion for quote-unquote holding a fascist icon, aka the American flag? And that's just the first one I found on Google.
And you could do all of those things.
And you just searched it yourself.
Antifa. Okay, so you are defending that Rose City Antifa is an active domestic terrorist group.
It's possible.
Okay, I'm reading off of their website.
We gotta put them on trial first, right?
I'm reading off of their website right now. Quote-unquote. We'll actually also just go to their FAQ. Okay, so their FAQ starts off, what is fascism? And their response is, well, fascism is a belief system that can be described by a set of traits. It doesn't have anything, it doesn't have to have everything on the list. And in fact, most versions in the world won't have everything on the list. We'd say that most versions would be ultranationalist, authoritarian, and xenophobic. We can also say that for sure the danger of fascist organizations poses is real and immediate because violence is essential to achieve their goals.
This isn't a refutation of what Dean said. It's more an issue of what the site says because they kind of took the definition of fascism and stretched it, when in reality, you shouldn't use Wikipedia to define political stuff. Rose City Antifa stated that fascism, quote-unquote, doesn't need to have all these things, but that makes the entire word's meaning vanish because if fascism doesn't need to have all of these characteristics, then you'll never have a concrete definition. The site acknowledges that the word fascism has been worn down like an eraser, and then proceeds to give a definition that is flexible enough to be used in the exact same way.
Okay, like, what in that, like, warrants labeling them as domestic terrorists?
I think if I was a terrorist, I wouldn't tell people that. Like, that's bad for getting caught.
Oh, okay. So you think that they're just concealing the fact that they're terrorists. So then how do you know that they're terrorists?
Well, yeah. Criminals aren't going to admit that they're criminals, right?
So then how do you know,
you're going to get arrested. Well, we don't know. That's why I was being fair.
Oh,
the argument
wait,
was,
so you're saying that you don't know. So the argument is that you actually don't know, like, specifically, like, who Donald Trump is defining as a domestic terrorist. Because, like, you told me.
Know.
Oh, then who? Then who? Who? Give me a name.
Organizations.
What organizations?
Calling themselves Antifa.
What? Okay, like Rose City Antifa?
And which you are not a part of any of them, so you're
Richard,
okay, Dean.
you just said that you do know who Donald Trump is labeling as terrorists. I asked you, okay, who is he labeling as terrorists? And then you responded by saying
Antifa.
Organizations that are calling themselves Antifa. Okay, Rose City Antifa. Are they an organization that are calling themselves Antifa?
Well, they're probably being investigated right now.
Answer my question. Are they an organization that labels themselves as Antifa?
Yes.
Okay, so then following from your logic, you know that they're terrorists.
Well, they're probably being investigated as possible terrorists.
Well, according to your logic, you already know that they are without investigation.
So throughout this section, it's still just Dean acting like he can't understand descriptors. Trump has given multiple descriptors that we can use to figure out who he's talking about, even without him naming individual people or cells, mainly the word violent. Now, Richard isn't retarded, so he knows that common logic would dictate that Antifa members who aren't violent would realistically not be who Trump is referring to, as proven by the fact that Dean Withers and every other leftist with a homosexual haircut have not been executed by firing squad for aforementioned homosexual haircut. Dean, in fact, is retarded because he thinks that catching non-terrorists under the Antifa umbrella term is enough evidence to disprove the terrorist's existence, or at least enough to prove that Trump is making them up or something. This is it like saying the Nazis weren't actually that hateful because the janitor that mopped the floors of Hitler's house was actually a pretty chill guy? Okay, I exaggerated a bit with that one because the proportion of people committing violence was way bigger in that case, but the logic still tracks. If there's a portion of a group that exhibits a common trait, then using our thinking caps, we would say that perhaps the ideology might have something to do with it.
Well, I know that no. According to my logic,
Yes, because I asked you, right, if you know who Donald Trump is defining as terrorists, and then you said, I do know, he's defining organizations that label themselves as Antifa, meaning that your logic would implicate Rose City Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, as they are an organization that labels himself as Antifa. Why are you absolutely so lost in the weeds of this, like, incredibly simple syllogism that you just simply can't track?
I'm sorry, bro. the fucking smile on his face, bro. I can't, bro.
tracking it pretty well.
So then admit that your logic would entail that Rose City
My logic entails that they are possibly being investigated because they are an organization. That's my logic.
So what did you say?
It's a pretty clear logic.
Did you say that you know who Donald Trump is referring to? Or did you say that you possibly know,
I know
who
who
might be
Donald Trump is
investigated in
referring to as
relation
Antifa.
to who it may be referring to?
I know who Donald Trump is referring to as Antifa, and it's not you.
Okay, so if you know who Donald Trump is referring to as these Antifa organizations, once again I'll ask you, who do you know he's referring to?
Well, I just get. All right, we're going in circles, man. I'm just gonna tell you it's Rose City Antifa, okay?
Okay, so then you know that he's referring to Rose City Antifa. Did he call these Antifa organizations domestic terrorists point blank period?
He called all Antifa, which refers to organizations.
Okay, so then he did call Rose City Antifa domestic terrorists. Do you agree with
Well,
it?
if there's a lot of cells, I don't think he's naming all of them, right?
Richard must be getting as tired as I am, but he brings up a good point here. Trump didn't refer to Antifa's individual cells because, once again, they all share the same name. Yes, peaceful Antifa organizations exist, but Trump has all of them under investigation because they all share the same name. It's not that hard to understand. You're operating in the same places as a terrorist group with the same name, uniform, and flag as a terrorist group. You can't be surprised when the FBI comes knocking. Dean's one and only gotcha throughout this entire video has been acting like he can't understand the difference between a peaceful protest group and a terrorist group simply because they share the same name. I'm convinced that if his mom changed her name, he would report her missing.
We just simply track your logic for like 3 seconds. That implies that according to Trump, they're a domestic terrorist organization. But then you want to walk back on that because you know how insane that is. So then it goes back to the grand elusiveness where you can't clearly tell me who Donald Trump is and isn't labeling as domestic terrorists. What are you doing, Richard? So you have told me, one second, my friend. You have told me that you know who Donald Trump is referring to as a domestic terrorist. All right, if you're still gonna die on that hill that you know who Donald Trump is referring to as a domestic terrorist, I need you to tell me who he's referring to since you know it. I feel like that's a fair ask. If you know who he's referring to, tell me who he's referring to.
My answer is many times. Do you just want me to keep naming names of groups that I know?
Okay,
what evidence do you want me to say?
So then you do agree that you know he is referring to Rose City Antifa.
Rose City Antifa is included in a list that he is
Okay.
describing as Antifa, yes.
So therefore, you would agree that Donald Trump is calling Rose City Antifa domestic terrorists.
Okay, this is all cats are dogs, and therefore this is not a dog, so it's a cat. This is bad logic, Being. You're committing a very big logical fallacy.
I'm actually not committing any logical fallacy whatsoever. This is third grader shit. You just told me that Rose City Antifa is one of the Antifa organizations that he's referring to, right?
Well, see, Dean, the problem is that you're setting up this conditional, right?
I just want a yes or no. Right? We're just gonna observe and reflect on everything that you just said.
Okay,
You
so-
told me that
so
you know that
here's-
Rose City
here's-
Antifa is on the list of the Antifa organizations he's referring to, right, Richard? If you don't answer this question, I'm gonna kick you.
So you're just gonna commit logical fallacy,
Well, I'm actually not
here's
committing
what
any
you're
logical
saying,
fallacy
right?
at all. I'm proactively trying to demonstrate how I'm actually not committing a logical fallacy, and in fact, the logic that I'm using is that in which third graders are equipped with. Right? It's super
so
simple
here's
logic,
what you're saying,
and I'm
right?
proactively trying to demonstrate that logic to you, but you're not even allowing me to proactively demonstrate that logic to you by avoiding my question. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you the question one last time, Richard. I understand that your little brain is breaking because you got fucking caught.
Holy projection.
But stop being so dense and hard-headed and just answer the question. You told me that you know that Rose City Antifa is one of the Antifa organizations on Donald Trump's list that he's referring to, right?
Yeah, high likelihood.
Okay, perfect. So if you know that he's referring to Rose City Antifa, therefore he thinks that Rose City Antifa are domestic terrorists, right? Because he thinks that these
It's highly
Antifa
possible.
organizations are domestic terrorists.
Yeah, highly possible.
I will admit that Trump using the blanket term terrorist organization for Antifa was not the most politically correct thing to say. That's something I will agree with Dean on. There are a lot of times where Trump should just stop yapping and let the experts talk. Mr. Trump, what did you mean when you said that the Haitian migrants were eating the dogs and the cats?
Okay, now let me ask you this question. How do you feel about the fact that our president is actively referring to these random organizations where we have no reason to believe that they're domestic terrorists whatsoever, literally just saying that they're against fucking fascism as literal terrorists?
Because, Dean, you absolute fucking mushroom-brained goofball, they wear the same uniform, fly the same flag, and have the same name. If a bunch of Muslim men start a business named Al-Qaeda, they will be getting a visit from the FBI, as they fucking should. I don't care if all you sell here is incense and prayer rugs. Just change your fucking name. These organizations could just change their name to the Anti-Fascist Organization of insert city here, instead of just Antifa. That would be more than enough to separate them a bit.
Well, are they being arrested right now?
I don't know. Go ask the DOJ.
Yeah, well, if they're being
you just
arrested,
told me that Donald Trump is referring to them as terrorists.
Conversation, right?
So now you're saying that Donald Trump's referring to them as terrorists, but he's not doing anything to them. So then would you agree that from Donald Trump's perspective, he's just letting domestic terrorists roam the streets of America, even though he knows exactly who they are?
I think they're trying to figure out if they're terrorists or not, and they might not be.
But now you're just walking back because I thought that you told me you knew that Donald Trump thinks they're terrorists.
He thinks they're possibly terrorists.
No, not possibly terrorists, that they are. He's never said that these Antifa organizations are possibly domestic terrorists. He's held strong with his convictions that they are terrorists. Not possibly, but that they are.
If he thinks that, and he's also an authoritarian, then they'd be arrested right now, which they're not, so.
Okay, so you're telling me that he doesn't think that. So then why is he lying?
He's not lying.
But he put out the tweet on the official White House account on his Truth Social. He had fucking Pam Bondi record a 3-minute propaganda video saying that these Antifa organizations are domestic terrorists. And now your response is to say, well, if he actually thought they were domestic terrorists, they would already be in cuffs, meaning that implies he doesn't think that they're domestic terrorists, right? And if he doesn't think that they're domestic terrorists, right? Well, then why did he say that they were? And if you're going to argue that he didn't say that, no, answer my question.
Right?
If he doesn't think that they're domestic terrorists, then why did he say they were?
Well, he wants to investigate them.
You're not answering my question.
So Dean is just acting like anything short of Trump instantly throwing them behind bars is him going back on what he said, completely ignoring that Richard is trying to tell him, as he gets constantly interrupted, that investigations are ongoing, due process does in fact exist, and the propaganda that the White House is putting out should be treated as such. Dean is probably just consuming any info he finds without question, so the idea of someone being hyperbolic or propaganda is completely foreign to him.
My question is, and I quote, if he doesn't think that they're domestic terrorists or thinks that he should probably investigate them, then why did he say that they were domestic terrorists? Can you answer that question? Because he said that they were definitively domestic terrorists, and he continues to do so every day. So if he doesn't think that they're actually domestic terrorists, then why does he continue to call them domestic terrorists?
Well, I think this is just an example of Trump applying due process, so it's a Trump W.
Okay, you're not answering my question.
I am answering your question.
How does that
you can
answer
think
my
somebody's
question?
a terrorist and not immediately arrest them.
Oh, okay. So you'd argue that he actually does think that they're terrorists.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Can we agree that with his messaging?
What's your gotcha now? Yes.
Can you agree that with his messaging, he's been trying to convince as many people as possible to agree with him?
Okay. Yes.
So you agree?
I'm just going to move the conversation forward because you are trying to get me on something.
Richard, so now that you agree that Donald Trump thinks that they are terrorists, and now that you've agreed that Donald Trump has been trying to convince everybody that they're terrorists, to agree with him and his convictions, right? This entails that Donald Trump is trying to convince 320 million Americans that these American citizens that haven't had due process, that haven't been investigated, that honestly don't signify anything of terrorism are terrorists. Do you think that this is like incredibly vindictive and harmful, as he is now specifically rhetorically targeting so many Americans for just merely disagreeing with him politically by not only labeling them as domestic terrorists, but trying to convince you, me, and everybody else that they're domestic terrorists as well?
Well, see, this logic falls apart when the answer to the premise is no.
Okay, so then you don't think that that's bad?
No, I don't think that how you described his motivation is right. I think you are wrong in your characterization of his beliefs.
Okay, so I'm wrong in my characterization of his belief, believing that they're domestic terrorists. So then
that everyone is automatically a terrorist, because otherwise they'd be arrested.
Okay, so if I'm wrong, right, well then why did Donald Trump say it?
Well, if you're right, then why is no one arrested?
Okay, so you're saying now if I'm right, why is nobody arrested? Because they're not actually fucking terrorists. You have to have probable cause to arrest somebody for an articulatable crime that they've not fulfilled. The answer to why they're not actually arrested is because they're not actually terrorists.
Okay.
Duh.
By this completely sound and not at all retarded logic, I could stab a person to death, leave no evidence, and flee the scene, and as long as there's no warrant out for my arrest, I'm completely innocent. I shit you not, that's what he's saying if you take it to its logical conclusion. No, Dean, it means that they're still gathering evidence, and they're doing what you don't and actually building a case for why each person should be in jail. That takes time, and you already know the leftist media isn't going to give that any attention. It's amazing how many of Dean's arguments are basically because the establishment said so. Why doesn't Antifa exist? Because the establishment said so. Why is Antifa existing actually a good thing now that we've been exposed for lying to you? Because the establishment said so. It's like arguing with CNN and NBC's retarded child. Okay, It's 12 a.m. when I'm writing this, and I'm tired, and I'm not watching another 2 minutes of this shit when I know he isn't going to say anything of substance. Watching this dude was a genuine fucking waste of my time. I know this is just one video of Dean's catalog of like hundreds, but I feel like I proved my point. Insta, Twitter, TikTok, Discord are in the bio. Check out the main channel. See ya!
I was just a kid in the suburbs doing alright. Then I became a young nigga overnight. When I catch low it's gonna be on site. 4.5s and ARPs. Up in the trenches with my new family. And a gang that's built on loyalty.